All right. We are doing the first podcast episode with Shane and Andrea. First episode, let's just introduce ourselves. I'll let Andrea go first. Tell the world about yourself.
My name is Andrea Nicole. I am a commercial realtor in Northwest Georgia, and I do big volume real estate. And I've been in real estate for 15 plus years, and I've worked with Shane for 15 plus years. And here we are.
Background on me, I started real estate in 2003, have stumbled and fumbled my way through it in really good momentum now, but I've done everything from real estate investing, property management, ran a real estate team. We had a team before real estate teams were cool.
Exactly. First team right here.
Pretty sure. Yeah. I think we were like, if we were one of the first, if not the first in the area back in like 2015 ish. And that was way before teams were cool. So between us, we've done everything in real estate. Andrea is very commercial heavy right now. And in this episode, I thought we'd just go over some of our favorite real estate stories that we've had over the years. And we can start with one that happened this week with Andrea. I'm sitting on my couch, chilling out in the evening. And then I get this phone call and it's Andrea.
So what happened was the listing agent called me. I have a property under contract. It happens to be a bank. I have it under contract, and he says, all the lights are on. What's going on? I was like, I don't know. We've not been there in a couple of days. We didn't leave the lights on. I said, but you know what? I'm not too far. Let me go by and check. I get there, and let me tell you, this place was lit up like Fort Knox. Like all the outside lights are on. I'm like,
we're talking like National Lampoon here. It's like lit up, blowing up the street lights. Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I can turn off a light. Like, I got this. So I go in, flipping all these light switches. It's not going off. I mean, it is lit up. And I'm like, so I go to the breaker box. I can't find it. So I FaceTime Shane because there's all these cars driving by, and I'm in a bank at nighttime with all these lights
on.
And
we're going to cover her history with banks and alarms shortly after this story, and you'll see why she's a little bit like she is when it comes to this.
So I FaceTime Shane. Well, I call Shane and I say, hey, I don't know where the light switch is. This place is lit up like Fort Knox. And he's like, FaceTime me. We'll figure it out.
I'm like, let's look at the breaker box. There's got to be a breaker that we can just shut the light off instead of trying to find some switch to a million lights.
So I flip multiple breakers, go around it. Long story short, these lights aren't coming off. These lights are on. There's some type of security light, and they're staying on. But a 15-minute FaceTime later, I don't know how to turn the lights off. I had no idea.
To our credit, though, we did get the inside lights off.
We did. The inside lights are off. However, I did find out the following day when I rode by in the morning that they're on a timer, and there was no way I could have turned them off anyways. Yeah. So,
So all that stress and anxiety of like, how do we turn these on? We don't remember turning these on. And then they're literally on a timer that you had absolutely no control of to begin with.
Yes. And it was like a security timer. So the outside bank lights came on at a certain time to keep the bank like safe and secure. And you've got me in there flipping breakers.
Yeah. And not only that, I mean, we were FaceTiming, we were walking around the building, like, cars.
This is like a 15-minute call, walking around, looking at outlets, looking at lights.
Nothing suspicious walking around a bank in the middle of the night.
Not suspicious at all. No.
So this is backstory number one. One of my favorite stories with you is when you had a bank listed, and your history with alarms and properties is long and storied, but tell the one about where you tripped off the alarm in the bank and what happened.
Okay. So I've sold many banks. I feel like that's my expertise. I feel like no agent in this area has sold as many banks as I have. Like, I feel like it's my specialty. So I go into this bank, like full confidence, like I've sold a bank. I know where things are. Well, we trip a silent alarm and don't know it. The bank's only been closed like a week or 2 weeks, something, not long. Next thing we know, we're walking around this bank, and here comes like all of Whitfield County PD, and they're pulling in, guns drawn, get on the ground. And I'm like, whoa, I'm a realtor. Like, no, don't shoot.
In my mind, I have the cop song going in the back of my head. Bad boys, bad boys.
Well, I'm in there with like business people. We're trying to buy this bank, and I mean they came in like a SWAT team, and I have never had such like anxiety and like a heart attack in my life. So I do have PTSD when it comes to banks now because we didn't know we tripped that alarm. Like that was a big surprise for us. Um, that was nerve wracking.
I can
That was
imagine.
that was a bad situation. But
Makes a
I went
great.
in there full confidence, like, oh, I've sold banks. Come on, guys, follow me. I've got this. And
Exactly.
yeah, it didn't turn out good.
But you did sell that bank. So,
Oh, yeah. I've sold a ton of banks. Yeah, I got that. It's
yeah.
sold for full list.
I'm trying to think back through. I remember one time we were, this is way back in the property management days. We had a property where we got a call that someone was messing with the central heat and air unit. I'm thinking the
Mhm.
cops. So like we like called the cops and we were on our way there and we like saw the cops like running through
Oh, they
red lights and
passed us.
stuff. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And we got there and like nothing was going on, but we had like 3 or 4 sheriffs from Whitfield County at this property.
They were, hey, that Whitfield County didn't play. They were ready. They were ready.
Yeah, and I remember because I remember the red light, the guy like threw on his intercom because people were not stopping and like threw on his intercom and said something kind of funny. But
No, he was like, get out of the way. Yeah, it was interesting to say the least. We've had some interesting stories with alarms and police. For the most part, the police are easy to work with and good
oh,
to us,
and
but
super nice. Like I've
super
been
nice.
I was on the side of the road one time putting up a street sign and I had one pull up behind me and they were totally friendly and cool. And then oh, this is a long time ago, pre-real estate, but I remember actually this is like I was in like high school and I ran out of gas and they're just nice enough to stop and help out. So yeah, I mean the majority of police are super nice and friendly.
I mean, once they realized like I was just a dumb realtor, they put the guns up.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah. They
fine.
were probably laughing at you.
Oh, no doubt. They left and they were like, what an
Yeah.
idiot. Who let her in there?
Right.
But no, it was good, and I've always had a good experience with the police.
So what's some other favorite memories or stories you have when it comes to real estate?
Um, I think the best ones though are the ones that like you don't expect to happen. Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, I mean, not guns drawn. I didn't expect that, and that wasn't a good one. But like when you're not expecting something to happen, like sometimes like they just fall in your lap. Like you're looking for, you've got a certain buyer that wants something specific, and then all of a sudden it turns into like something bigger. I think that's always exciting.
So you've been through a lot of different phases of real estate too, like property management, commercial, residential. Is commercial pretty much your favorite?
Commercial is definitely my favorite, just because it's so different than residential. I feel like the paperwork's different, the negotiation is different, the lending is different, everything's different about it, and I like it much more because I do have a background of, owning a business and operating a business, and, so I feel like I can really help them navigate like their location, their loan, things like that. So I do prefer commercial. A lot more of my contacts are commercial. A lot more of my clients are commercial. But on the flip side, I don't mind residential at all. I have lots of friends that I've helped sell their homes, and you know, I'm always happy to help somebody in residential. But commercial really is my passion, and I feel like that's what I'm good at, and I think that's where I thrive, and I do much better is in commercial real estate.
Yeah, I think that's the key for real estate professionals is to find what they're good at and what they enjoy, because
Hmm.
otherwise going to get burned out. Like some people really enjoy working with buyers. I know that's not a particular favorite of ours. We'll do it. We'll definitely help people on buyers and stuff. But that's definitely not our focus. Uh, but some people are made for that. Like that's what they really enjoy and that's what they really do. And then residential versus commercial. Uh,
It's
if
two
you're, an,
different worlds. It's just
yeah,
two different
yeah.
worlds.
If you're a residential agent, uh, you really should refer that commercial lead out to someone else because commercial you're dealing with more sophisticated investors. Uh, and you're just dealing with a lot more. So commercial real estate has a lot more to it as far as due diligence, as far as understanding how properties are priced and structured. Whereas residential is, a bit more basic. A property is valued based on comparable sales.
Mhm.
Uh, you're dealing with homeowners, so you're guiding them through that phase. So it's two different people, two different personality types, and
Two
I
different
think,
mindsets, really.
yeah, yeah. You've got to find the one what area that you like and want to work in. But I don't, and most people are not good at both.
I agree. I agree. I think you can really mess yourself up trying to do both. And I would never knock another agent, but I have seen where a residential agent gets a commercial listing and it's like it's overpriced and it sits and it's not marketed properly and it's like, why didn't
Or
they
on
just
the
refer
other
that out
end,
or
on the other end, underpriced.
yeah.
You
Oh,
know
oh, oh, big time, big time. I've seen underpriced and they'll be like, sold in 10 days. Well, sir, that's because you underpriced it.
exactly.
And I think too in commercial, it's really about your contacts.
Yeah.
Because if you have somebody out of town that can buy it, or vice versa, can you get if the bank's not going to loan, do you have a hard money lender that can make it happen? And I think there's just so many different moving parts to commercial than there is to residential.
The one thing that I particularly like about commercial is there's emotion involved, but when it comes to residential real estate, there's a lot more personal attachment to homes and stuff. Whereas in commercial real estate, it's about the numbers, and there's a lot more ego, I think, in commercial real estate than
Oh
residential.
yeah, oh yeah,
But
oh yeah.
in some cases, I just like dealing with the numbers and the properties, and it's a little more cut and dry versus residential. You have a lot more feelings on both sides when it comes to buyers, when it comes to sellers, and you have to be really good at navigating those
Hmm.
and sorting those out. Whereas commercial, you have to navigate egos a little bit. It's what it seems like to me, but it's much more about the numbers.
It's 100% all boils down to the numbers, but ego is a huge part of commercial real estate. And I would think definitely for residential real estate, it's people get very emotionally attached to a property, and you see it all the time. Even if it doesn't fit their needs, it's out of their budget, they're emotionally attached to it and they want it. Where in commercial, it's like, I like that property, but the numbers don't work, so no, it's cut and dry.
Yeah, when we're talking about ego in commercial real estate, it could be like one person is at this number, the other person is at the other number, and they're close, but just because they want to be right, they won't budge, and that happens sometimes.
Oh, I've lost deals over $500, and I'm like, I'll take it out of my commission. No, he's not gonna do that to us, and it's like, okay.
I think another topic I want to touch on is so we've been through different market cycles, different phases.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is past 3 years has been really easy. I mean, just being honest, it's been easy. Anybody could sell real estate during that time frame. And what's your opinion on the biggest thing I see is there's a bunch of new agents, but for whatever reason, they've not been taught how to write up contracts very well or some of the basic fundamentals. Um, what's your
Um,
thoughts on why that might be?
I think a lot of the new agents, they have transaction coordinators. They're on these large teams, and it's just kind of like, this is your job, this is your job, pass it off, pass it off. And I have noticed that a lot. And I think the big thing is they want numbers. They want to pull in volume. And to do that, they can't take the time to write the contract. So it's passed off to a transaction coordinator that does it, which can hurt the deal. I don't write my own contracts. I do have somebody else that does that for me. However, I am involved in the process and I do know exactly what they say. And I know how to explain it to my client before it's signed. And I think that's what we're missing in a lot of the new agents. And I think it's just volume. They just, it's a revolving door because you see a lot of people that start and then they quit. And it's because they weren't properly trained. Instead of focusing on education, they're very focused on things like politics. I mean, RPAC, every time I'm in there, RPAC, donate to RPAC. Man, I don't care about that. Bring somebody in here that can tell these new agents about zoning because they're bringing people in and selling on properties that aren't even zoned for what they need. And then they end up with an agent like me who's like, well, now we've got to go through rezoning. And it's just something that's not taught. And I just think it's a time thing. I think let's get them in, get them selling, let's get these numbers generated. And nobody takes the time to stop and say, let's teach them how to write a proper contract. Let's teach them the zoning laws. Let's introduce them to who's on the zoning committee, the zoning board. And I think it's unfortunate that I am seeing them kind of herded through like cattle, but I think they're learning as they go. I think a lot of the new agents are good agents, and they're here to stay and they're going to do good. But I do think they're kind of herding them in like cattle, and they're not taking the time to explain the things that are important in real estate.
Yeah, I totally recommend any agent that is new. Joining a team's a good idea to get going if you know absolutely nothing. But what a lot of teams will do is they will trap you and hold you hostage to where you can't escape, and you're just pigeonholed into being a buyer's agent instead of learning other skill sets. I know at our firm, so like you said, you don't do your own contracts. The way I
I don't.
structured it,
However, if I need to, I know how.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But the reason we structure it that way is I want my agents like you to focus on selling, and
Mhm.
that's your strength. I don't want you to worry about contracts and documents. So essentially you get us the information, and then Becca, our office manager, she handles the contract and stuff. So for us, it's a structure to allow you to focus on your strengths. So it's not that you can't do it. That's just the way we have it structured to be more beneficial for you.
Exactly, and I kind of like it structured that way for me because some of our deals are very, very complicated because it's multiple units on the same parcel, or it's something very complicated. It's a shopping center. It's a there's an easement on the property. So I like actually bringing it to you and saying, hey, how should we write this up to protect my buyer? Because there's this piece, there's that moving piece, and how do we make the other side understand this is what we want? So I kind of like that because we have a smaller firm, so I like being able to bounce that back and forth. But I do agree. My strengths are outside the office, and I bring my paperwork inside the office.
Yeah, over the years, I've just noticed that people who are strong in sales generally are not strong on details. And so, like, I think combining skill sets and organize a process is good for that. And agents. What's funny about all the new agents is there's literally more agents in the marketplace than there are listings right now.
Yes, that's true.
So that means there's a lot of people not performing.
Mhm.
So you have to stand out and focus on your strengths to be successful, I think.
Well, that's why you see a lot of the like top 20%. Well, of course you're the top 20% because the other 80% is not performing.
Oh yeah, it's not that I don't think people realize to be in the top 20%. I can't remember. I ran the numbers many years ago, but you only have to make maybe like 3 or 4 sales. It's very few because half of the agents do nothing at all. The
Mhm.
other 25% are doing maybe 1 or 2. So if you go above like 2 sales, you're probably in the top 20%, generally speaking.
Exactly. And I think people see that on social media and they're like, oh, they're in the top 20%. The top 20% of what? Like of what? So I think there's a lot of things with new agents and new teams that are just more for show, and it doesn't reflect actual sales or actual
Well, it's
numbers.
about marketing, right? And
It
and it
is.
does
It is.
work. Like, people believe what they see on social
Mhm.
media. And if you market and present correctly, that's what people, that
Mhm.
they're not doing anything wrong. They're just following a formula that works, and
Absolutely.
public buys it, right? So,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of differences when somebody's looking to pick an agent. A lot of people just go to somebody they know, but
Mhm.
they should spend time analyzing, who's that agent with as far as a brokerage, what's the pros and cons of that brokerage, and then, what's the pros and cons of that agent. A lot of people, have a house or a commercial property, and they just go with somebody they know without actually fully researching, and that's a
Mhm.
big deal. Like a commercial property or a house or whatever, that we're talking a lot of money here, and people really don't spend a lot of time picking out the right agent for that.
I agree with that. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I've seen this guy all over social media," or "This is my cousin's best friend," and they don't really take the time to see, is this a complicated deal where I'm going to need an experienced agent that can handle it, or can you just use Joe Blow? I mean, because some cases you can, if you got a 3-2 ranch and you price it right, go ahead, girl. You can use whoever, whatever you want. But if you've got a complicated deal, then you definitely need an experienced agent.
Right. Yeah. And, if everybody's got to start somewhere. So if there's a new agent who has the right attitude and the right go getter and all that, they might be a good choice. But, Yeah, I just think people oversimplify and don't analyze enough when it comes
Mhm.
to making big decisions like that about who to go with.
I agree. I think it's very similar to even picking the right doctor. You wouldn't go to your pediatrician if you had a heart problem.
Right.
That's kind of how I see it with commercial versus residential. I mean, if my foot's hurting, I'm not going to go to my cardiologist. Like, there's a difference.
And I think people should ask more questions. So just using the doctor example, a lot of people just blindly listen to what the doctor says without
Mhm.
questioning it. And same thing for like lawyers, but any professional should actually not blindly take what someone says and do a little research and follow up on your own as well.
I agree.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. And I hope the best for all the new realtors, but there's more realtors than listings right now, and I think that's going to reflect soon because I think anybody that got in the last 3 years, I was watching a podcast. It was Grant Cardone or one of them, and they said, anybody that's joined in the last 3 years, like you got lucky, like buckle up, you got lucky
Yeah.
because
Same for real estate investors.
yeah, this isn't how it actually is. So I think we'll see a big turn as far as agents soon. I think we're going to see not so many excited to join, and I think we'll see several fall off.
Yeah, speaking of Grant Cardone, so I did an introduction to real estate investing class this past weekend. I had about 10 people there. And it's been a long time since I've done any sort of seminar or class like that. So the first thing I asked was, what do you want to get out of today? And out of about 10 people, I had 3 or 4 people say they want to learn how to buy apartments. And the only thing I can think of is they're getting this from like Grant Cardone. But let's slow down and actually do a small house deal before looking at doing
Right.
apartments.
People want to run before they can even walk. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like people. I don't know if it's just with the social media stuff or like TikToks and stuff, but used to be when I started back in my day, I had to go to like courses and seminars, and I had to dig, and people were not as willing to give up information. And
Right.
today, information is everywhere, and people listen to a 45-second clip and think they know what they're doing, and that's a little bit dangerous to some degree.
It's very
Um,
dangerous because I mean, to get a multi-unit complex, there's so many moving parts to that. I mean, and they just want to jump in, and it's like,
yeah, so if you're a brand new person, you've never done a deal. So to buy an apartment complex, you've got to have money backers or a way to finance it. And if you have money backers, they're going to want some equity. Plus, as we talked about earlier, commercial people are pretty smart.
very.
So if you're brand new, you have no track record, and you go up to somebody and say, "Hey, will you be my money backer, or let's form a syndication to go buy an apartment complex?" They're not going to take you seriously. So then you need to get a track record. But if you want to do apartments, so you have to go find an apartment deal. Well,
Mhm,
to do that, you've got to expand your territory because how many apartments are there around here? So
mhm,
you're going to be going like 5 or 6 states to try to find an apartment deal. And then the thing is, then you got to get money for the deal. If I find a house and if I, simple example, I find a house for 100,000, it's worth 200,000. I could find somebody to fund that deal within a week,
mhm,
probably like 2 or 3 days. If I find an apartment complex where I need $3 million, that's going to take more than a week. So
mhm.
uh, the complications of getting financing, plus having a management team in place, plus the contractors, it just blew my mind that people had no consideration of all the moving parts, like you said, that would be involved in buying an apartment complex when they've never done a single house flip.
It's all what's popular on social media right now, and I think people just kind of follow the trends without doing their research.
Yeah, I think it's all about the knowledge is out there right now. People enjoy listening to the knowledge, whereas back when we first started, it was more about doing.
Mhm.
Make a lot of mistakes, make a lot of errors, but you do, and you learn from doing and field testing and learning what works and doesn't work in practicality.
And something else I've noticed too is it's just the market is flooded with these wannabe wholesalers. Have you noticed that?
Yes,
It's
yes.
so bad.
Have you seen some of these TikToks? There's some TikToks. It's been probably back a year ago. I was just searching through some real estate TikToks, and like you have these wholesalers. Like I remember one TikTok that this guy had like a pile of cash and like a gold chain, and talking about, yeah, I just do this. I make money just selling paper, and And it was hilarious. But people seem to be buying into that you could just go out and know everything about wholesaling really quickly and
Mhm.
just, I don't know. Um,
There's several legit wholesalers that I like,
oh,
that I work
absolutely.
with, that I think are great, but there's probably 3 times that amount that are just idiots wasting your time.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about the last wholesaler we dealt with. So the guy calls us and says that he has a buyer
Mhm,
for a listing we had. So we
mhm.
actually did give him the contract because we figured there was no harm in it. It was only like a 2-week contract or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, what can it hurt?
Okay, we have a contract for a price. He then comes back and submits like 3 or 4 different offers that are nowhere near that price, that ask for owner financing, and were not the terms that we agreed to.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't understand it's not time to negotiate, we're under contract. And what my favorite part of that deal was when we saw it on Facebook,
Yeah,
like it wasn't already a listed property.
right. And the other thing was, yeah, where he had it listed on Facebook, either wasn't any margin for him to even negotiate room from the
No.
contract price he had.
You kind of when you're gonna wholesale, you kinda need to have all that lined up.
Well, if you're going to wholesale properly, when you put a contract on a property, that's the price.
Mhm.
You're not
There's
going
no
back
more
to the
time to
seller and
negotiate.
trying to renegotiate.
Mm-mm.
I was actually talking to another investor about a really bad situation a wholesaler put a seller in. The wholesaler put a contract on the property, said they were going to buy the property, and then ghosted. So the seller reached out to another investor who, he knew would come through. Well, they went to go and close on the property, and this wholesaler had recorded a memorandum of agreement, which basically means the title was clouded and they couldn't close on the property. So the other investor calls the other wholesaler, and the other wholesaler says, "No, we're not taking this off, and we'll sue you if you purchase it." The
Wow.
contract has expired. The contract is no longer valid, but there's still this cloud on title that they can't get rid of. So um,
Wow.
they were able to get rid of it. The way it just worked out. So this property had a private lender on it.
Mhm.
So this investor went to the private lender and said, "Hey, I want to buy your note for face value. You're getting all your money." And then the investor foreclosed on the property in a friendly way. It didn't go against the seller's credit or anything. That wiped out the title cloud. But that was just like a
Man, what
completely
a mess.
unethical way to do business.
And again, it goes back to people watching TikToks and Facebook and thinking that they know how to do things when they don't. They're just out here like the wild, wild west trying to make a quick buck. And you need friends in real estate. You don't need to go against people.
No, not at all. I mean, you you can make mistakes and you can come back from mistakes, but when you're
Oh,
constantly
absolutely.
just showing, who you are basically, then it catches up to you.
Yes, yes. You'll get a reputation very quick of not doing good business, proper business, ethical business.
Yeah.